Well, it's not quite as nice as Monday, but, here it is.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Is this the second best day of the week?
No. Tuesday is the Rodney Dangerfield day of the week.
That's right.
Now you're going to respect it all,
We've had this discussion before.
Yes, I know.
Pointed out to you, there is a Taco Tuesday that some people celebrate in various cultural minorities around the United States, known as lunchrooms.
Is there really a Taco Tuesday?
Yeah,
Seriously?
I think it's mostly a school thing.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's after the Michelle Obama changes to the lunch code.
Michelle Obama would not allow a Taco Tuesday unless it's a vegetarian taco.
Well, she doesn't have much choice. The new Cromnibus bill had measures against Michelle Obama's lunch reforms.
Oh, my goodness. And speaking of the Obamas, you'll be happy to know, ladies and gentlemen, that our president, who has been going through so much stress recently, I mean, he's just been taking it, right and left from people and he had to struggle through and sign that whole deal for the amnesty, and he's been taking lots of heat for it. You'll be happy to know, ladies and gentlemen, that the Obamas, the entire family, heading off to Hawaii for a 17-day Christmas vacation.
Good for them.
Whew, boy, I feel so much better now, just knowing that he'll have a chance to go out and play a little golf, something he rarely gets to do. Michelle will have a chance to wander around the private gardens of Hawaii and maybe learn some new things to plant when she gets back to the White House. I don't know, just the girls can have fun, and they're growing up now, and they need time to relax and de-stress from school.
Right. See what the real world's like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so just in case you were worried that our president wasn't getting his requisite relaxation time to refresh and recharge, 17-day vacation. So
when does that take off?
I don't care.
Except for signing that executive order, I don't think he's had to do much for that.
Well, yeah. Anyway, but that brings to mind, though, John, that you and I will be taking a vacation.
That's right. The longest vacation in talk radio history.
Yes, starting on the 22th.
And we'll be back on the 2nd.
Yes. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Without John or I, or me, John or me, without John or me.
Yeah.
And basically it'll be holiday programming for 2 weeks.
That's right. We apologize in advance. But since Peter and I are pretty much the only people that work here, when one of us wants to take vacation, the other one does as well. And we figured you guys would give us a break since it was the holidays.
Yes.
So just remember, the president's is more than twice as long as ours.
That's right.
So
absolutely. So anyway, we will be gone, and we will we'll be hanging around. I don't know about you, but I'll be hanging around.
I'll be in town most of the time.
So yeah. Anyway, so now you know, ladies and gentlemen, our secret plans.
In fact, I'm kicking it off with some bell ringing.
Are you really? Where at?
My daughter and I are going to do this South Walmart here.
Way to go, John. All right.
Should be fun.
Way to go.
Do that on Saturday.
See how long it takes you to go quietly insane.
Remember when they told you that it's an 8-hour shift?
Yes.
I said, well, I'll be doing it with my 7-year-old. And he's like, we're going to put you in for 2 hours.
Oh, 2 hours.
Oh, thanks. Now I look like a wuss.
Anyway, so, but I'm glad you're doing that. Now you're doing for the Salvation Army, right?
Yeah.
All right. Good for you.
It should be fun. Come by and say hi on Saturday.
Now,
I'll be there from 12 to 2.
12 to 2. All right. So this is the Walmart down here on...
Yeah, the south side.
South side. Okay.
Heading out towards Lolo.
Kind of the mini super Walmart.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's good. Now, what do we have on our agenda today? Oh, we have a phone call. Oh, my gosh. We have a phone call on a talk show. Imagine that. So anyway, 721-1290 is our number. Our 1-800-5685.
Candy line 1.
Oh, Candyland on line 1. Good morning, Candy.
Yeah, I don't believe in coincidences too much. There's a blurb in the history section of today's paper.
Okay.
In 1976, the government halted its swine flu vaccination program following reports of paralysis apparently linked to the vaccine. I just found that very coincidental after yesterday's discussion.
That is shockingly relevant to yesterday's discussion.
It is, and I'm going over to that hearing for Gary Marbett this morning, so hopefully some people will show up on the possibility of voter impropriety or something like that.
Can you so this is he... Does he have a lawsuit in
he's filed
in his
suit,
race against Dudek or what?
Yeah, at 9 o'clock. in the courthouse.
Yeah, Ms. Dudek already found herself a little bit of hot water with Jonathan Model over some sort of $900 expenditure on some campaign business cards or whatever.
Postcards.
Yeah, postcards. And now Jonathan Model is going to be meeting with her to decide her financial punishment.
Yes,
Wow.
Of course. But, so if anybody's out there that's interested, it's at 9 o'clock. So
And where's it going to be?
At the courthouse. It's a hearing. It's an actual hearing.
Okay, great. So I will not be there. I will be there at 10 for the closing arguments of the Karma trial, so I will not be able to attend.
Yeah, and there was an interesting article about a man that is possibly going to get a conviction overturned this morning, too, in the paper. Yeah, he was accused of killing his best friend. And they found evidence that possibly that wasn't true.
Interesting.
Wow.
Go with the Innocent Project.
All right. Thanks, Candy.
Okay, bye.
Appreciate the call. A little update there from Candy, 721-1290. I don't have time to read the paper
Got
either.
a legal eagle out there. That's good to know.
So, I'm a little busy in the mornings. I wish I had time to put my feet up and read the paper.
What are you doing anyway? You don't pre-record all this stuff?
You know exactly what I'm doing there. Hey, we're up against a break. 721-1290 is our number. We have all three lines open, a little bit of open phones, but you have another song you
That's
found.
right, the first musical of the 2015 legislature, and it's not even here yet.
Wow.
Prepare to be amazed.
And it's performed by a half-naked guy.
He looked pretty full naked in the video I saw. Luckily, you don't have to watch the video.
Yes, that's
You
true.
can listen to it.
We'll be right back. We're back on Talk Back. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. But John King, ladies and gentlemen, in his never-ending search to find really fun stuff that we can play before our real guest here gets here at 8:30 this morning, I understand that you have found yet another fabulous musical number, right?
Yeah. This is from Bob Wire. He's the one who did the Chicken Truck song not too long ago.
Yeah.
He's done a new song. I forget the exact name, Montana GOP, and then in parentheses...
Dress Code.
Dress Code, I think, is the actual title of his YouTube clip, which you should go and check it out on YouTube if you want to see Bob Wire playing guitar without clothes on.
Yeah.
I also edited out a butt slap that occurs at the very beginning of the song just to get the song going faster. So
A butt slap?
Yep, he does a little bit of a right before the guitar gets going.
There you go. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as far as I know, this is the biggest issue at the Montana legislature.
It's not
Forget
the water rights.
budget, forget water rights.
Yeah.
Dress code. This is
Right.
the thing that if you go to the Facebook verse or the Twitter verse, this is the number one issue.
Here we go.
I want to tell you about Montana and our House of Representatives. You've heard of Montana, that's where David Letterman lives. Part-time. Our representative in Helena reported that she'd gotten a decree. She said, girls, I got a note here from the Montana GOP. Lady representatives, you're wearing your dresses way too high. And the Speaker of the House is worried that you might expose a little thigh.
Oh, boy.
We came up with a dress code that's designed to help you keep your dignity. It was signed by the leader of the Montana GOP. Well, it happened that the GOP was going to meet that very afternoon. They were sure surprised when Representative Hill wore her miniskirt into the room.
Oh, my gosh.
And as she loaded up her PowerPoint, I still recall the words they had to see. She said, I'd like to address this meeting of the Montana GOP.
But wait, there's more.
Well, it says here in your dress code that our hemlines ought to fall below our knees. Or better yet, just wear a business suit, but no leggings, please. And shoes with open toes are not allowed because it drives the menfolk wild. I think I speak for all the women when I say I won't be treated like a child. The people of Montana have elected you to do your very best. It's not our problem if you can't keep your eyes off a woman's chest. I hope you're not offended when I tell you that this dress code's out of line. I won't go in your closet, and I'll thank you, sir, to keep away from mine. Well, I wouldn't put you on. These are the wingnuts representing you and me. The uptight bunch of sexists might as well be Texas GOP.
Wow.
Those moralizing, demonizing misfits of the House majority.
Cheers for himself.
There you go.
I'll link the video to our Facebook page if you really want to see Bob Wire playing guitar naked. What do you think? What do you think of the song stylings?
You know,
I got to say, not as good as Chicken Truck, but it's pretty good.
I will say that, in my opinion, this is all much ado about nothing.
Oh.
It's much ado about nothing. Now, if the GOP had only left the part out about the short skirts and the plunging necklines, it would have been fine. Just dress in business attire. And if you're a woman, whatever you perceive to be business attire, please wear that. If they had just left out the other stuff, they would have been fine.
Are you sure?
I think so.
I think we've got nitpickers here.
Well, now let me ask our ever wise and wonderful listeners, what do you think? 721-1290. I mean, would this be a big deal if they haven't? If they had just left out the little phrase that said the skirts and the neckline.
It says be sensitive to, yes. I think if I'm quoting it correctly, I don't have it in front of me, but be sensitive to high skirts and low necklines or something like that.
If they let that out, I think it'd have been fine.
But they're moralizing, demonizing Montana GOP.
I know.
Demonizing.
They're demonizing. There you go. Anyway, 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Or you can make your comment on our Facebook. And you know, the thing is, that is so easy. It's if you will, low-hanging fruit to criticize. It really is. It's low. You know what I mean? You don't have to reach up.
Are you demonizing the low-hanging fruit of the Montana legislative ladies?
All I'm saying is that they picked something that's extremely easy to criticize. I mean,
I would like to hear a Bob Wire song about the budget or the water compact, which we'll be talking about here in 10 minutes.
Yes, we will. We'll have a guest from FARM, which is Farmers
and Ranchers of Montana.
Ranchers of Montana. And these are folks who used to be opposed to the water rights compact.
Not all the members of FARM.
Okay. All right.
These are all representatives of property, farmers and ranchers.
Right.
And they're afraid, apparently, of the effects that it might have if the compact doesn't go through.
Okay. So anyway, we'll be talking about that here in about 10 minutes or so when that representative will be on the phone with us. We're going to take a little commercial break. We'll come right back. I'd love to hear your comments about this whole dress code thing. It's been blown way out of proportion. It's a fun thing. It's kind of a water cooler thing to talk about. It's just, I don't know. It's much ado about nothing. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't pass any laws. It doesn't. All it does is poke fun at older conservative Republicans. I'm sorry.
One of our insiders says that she might be able to get us to get Bob Wire on the show sometime.
Cool.
So maybe we'll work. We'll
be
work
great.
On that.
I will insist that he wears his shirt.
Why? Don't demonize him, Peter. Don't moralize.
Okay, we're going to come right back. Stay with us. As I gaze outside my patented exclusive weather window, I see the rosy-fingered dawn beginning to caress the misty mountaintops. And there it is, sunrise in Missoula, Montana. It's virtually Shakespearean. With the spinners! See, I can still talk in it. I can still do it. I mean, if I have to.
Rosy-fingered Dawn's older than Shakespeare, isn't that Homer?
I thought that was Shakespeare.
I think it's Homer.
Homer.
Yeah.
Homer, Jethro.
Yeah, Homer and Jethro.
Shoot, man, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. I like
the
that.
Odyssey, you crazy cat.
When do we get into this stuff?
I don't know.
Okay, so
speaking of getting into stuff,
yes.
Today is the final day, most likely, of the karma trial as we know it.
It is.
And you have a theory. Well, the defense, surprisingly to me and many other people, only called like two major witnesses.
The state took almost a full week to present all their witnesses. I mean, they had They had neighbors. They had hairstylists. They had policemen. They
Pardon the pun, but they came fully loaded.
well, whatever. I mean, and they had detailed, lengthy examinations and cross-examinations of their witnesses. They came time for the defense. From what I understand, there were only 4 expert witnesses. I think only we heard from maybe. Now, I wasn't there for the whole thing because I'm here until 10
Well, I
o'clock.
asked Greg yesterday. He
Yes.
said they had the 2 doctors,
Right.
one specializing.
Dr. Martinelli and Dr. Johnson.
Right.
Right.
One specialized on your reactions to high stress circumstances or under high stress conditions, and
Right.
the other was last Friday. But other than that, most of the witnesses were officers.
Right.
And they only got a few questions, and we didn't really learn much from them, according to Greg.
Exactly.
And so I was like, okay, well, they're going to bring out the big gun. They're going to put Karma on the stand. But no.
They didn't, and I think that came as an absolute shock to a lot of people, or maybe it didn't. That they didn't put Mr. Karma on the stand to testify, and so the defense has rested, and now in about 5 minutes, Judge Ed McLean will be speaking to the jury. By the way, one of the jurors was excused yesterday, juror number 11, and he was replaced with an alternate juror.
Why this late in the game?
We don't know. And the judge was very careful to advise the jury not to speculate amongst themselves why the juror left the panel.
But we can.
We don't know. So we don't know why he left. It could have been a personal reason. It could have been a conflict. It could have been a number of things, but we just don't know.
Inside baseball, you know that a picture of one of the people on the jury had been released.
Mm-hmm. Inadvertently, yeah.
Yeah, but it got out there. Is the individual who left one that was?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I do not know that. So anyway, so there are, there were, I believe, 3 alternates that were there during the whole trial. So the 12 jurors and then the 3 alternates sat outside the jury box.
But they were hearing everything.
But they still heard everything. So they were still part of the trial. And so it was very easy. One individual who was the first alternate went and replaced juror number 11. Anyway, so in about 5 minutes, Judge Ed McLean will be giving the jury his final instructions. And he will be instructing them on matters of law and what they will be deciding upon. I'm assuming that he will tell them that the charge against Mr. Karma is deliberate homicide. And from what I understand, from my questioning of both the defense and the prosecution, who have not been able to be really forthcoming because they're in the middle of a trial.
Right.
I asked them, are there any what they call lesser included offenses, things like mitigated deliberate homicide or manslaughter or whatever. And as far as all I could get out of them is right now, as it stands now, it's deliberate homicide or not guilty. It's either guilty or not guilty of deliberate homicide. Now, a deliberate homicide charge carries a minimum sentence of 10 years in prison, maximum sentence of up to life in prison.
Now, they say right now because it's possible for them to strike a plea deal of some sort, right?
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be working on a plea agreement or not. These are things that haven't happened yet. Now, just looking at, and again, please listen to me, okay? I am not an attorney. I've just been watching the trial as a spectator like everybody else, okay? I've been listening to almost every moment of testimony.
Unlike most people.
And what I think is going to happen, again, this is just speculation, okay? I believe that if Mr. Karma is found guilty, that there will be an appeal on the grounds of a change of venue. Because I believe Paul Ryan, who is the chief attorney, asked at least twice to have a change of venue. With all the negative publicity from the Missouli and the television, radio, I mean, I'd say 99.9% of the news stories and media coverage has been negative in the event against Mr. Karma.
Was he pushing to have the trial in Hamburg?
So, where should the trial be? The trial could be in Superior. It could be in Phillipsburg, just somewhere out of Missoula County, is I think what they want to do. And I think if this were my case, and I really honestly believe that my client couldn't get a fair trial here, that let the trial go through, let the verdict be issued, and then try for an appeal for a change of venue and retry do a retrial somewhere else. Again, not an attorney. I don't know how that would be possible to do, but that it just seemed like the defense was so short and so limited in scope that perhaps they're holding something back. I don't know.
Let me ask you this. If you're going to do that, change of venue, all this jazz, would you instruct your client to spend thousands on flying experts up from California if it wasn't your last-ditch effort?
I don't know. I again, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
I don't know. I mean, I might, maybe they have that kind of money to throw around, but it would at least be a question in my mind. Hey, if we're going to push for this, maybe we should hold our funds.
I don't know. So these are things that we will find out today. As a matter of fact, in about 3 or 4 minutes, when Judge McLean begins telling the jurors what the instructions are, and then
do you know if he'll give them a dress code instruction?
No, but then there'll be closing arguments. And I believe the prosecution goes first, and then the defense, and then the case goes to the jury. And from what I understand, it actually could go to the jury by late this afternoon.
Wow.
And because it's hard for me to imagine the closing arguments would take all day.
Sometimes the closing arguments can be really surprising. Like, they just dropped little seeds and they didn't want to play their hand out in front of the opposite party, and then they put it all together for you in the final moments.
And this is one of the reasons why we've been at the trial. Greg Baird, our digital producer and editor, is there, and he's going to be filing reports on our website at newstalkkgvo.com. He's also going to be tweeting. We'll be looking for tweets here in the next few minutes when he gets to the trial. So anyway, so we'll try to keep you informed throughout Talkback as to what's happening at the Karma trial. So,
have you made up your decision after watching the defense? Did it change your mind at all?
I'm not going to say anything.
Really?
I am going to try to be a journalist and remain above the fray and just report what happens. Imagine that. So anyway, we're going to take a little break, come right back, and we're going to be visiting with someone from an organization called Farm and Ranchers for Montana, about the Water Rights Compact with the Confederate Salish and Kootenai tribes. And we'll find out more about that. And we'll keep you updated on the happenings from the trial in just a moment. Hey, thanks for joining us on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, and love to have you on this morning. Visiting with Scott Reichner here in just a few moments from the organization called Farm. And let's go ahead and get him on right now. Good morning, Scott. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Excellent. Can you tell me the correct way to pronounce your last name, please?
Scott Reichner.
It's Reichner?
Reichner.
Reichner, yes. With an N. Okay, great. All right, well, Scott, first of all, thank you for being on the show today. We sure appreciate it. Could you tell us a little bit about the organization you represent?
Sure. It's just a grassroots organization made up of ag users, water users across the state of Montana, business owners that are concerned about property rights, water rights in the state of Montana, and educating folks about the compact that's coming up, and what the pros and the cons are, and sort of hopefully get into a nice dialogue with folks about the good things that are coming out of it thus far.
Now, your background a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be involved with Farm.
Well, I was I'm a 3-term state legislator from Big Fork, and just finishing up my tenure in the legislature. Prior to that, I'm a business owner. I own a small lending company in Big Fork, and been in the valley for 17 or 18 years. And I was approached because I voted against the compact in the last session because I felt like there were a lot of unanswered questions, and there were also some misconceptions out there as well, and things just weren't ready to, come together on the settlement. So when I during the interim of this last year, I was able to sit back and kind of see the progress that had been made. The WIVIC committee, led by the Attorney General's office, and others that have, made an attempt to bring the tribe to the table and to, get them to participate in a better settlement. So I think, I was asked to participate, and I offer my services just to be there.
So tell us a little bit about what has changed. What changed in you, or what has changed in the bill to make it more likely, if you were in the session, you would vote for it now, I assume?
Well, let me be clear. The bill isn't. There isn't a bill per se yet. It hasn't been drafted. As you know, there's been a series of interim meetings,
right,
between that were designed to help bring the two entities together. And I think just yesterday, the day before, they've come to an agreement on the issues. And I'm supportive of those issues. So there have been some substantive changes. And in fact, there's a recent letter from Roy Swanson, Deputy Attorney General, who, I think said it best that there's no such thing as a perfect settlement. But in this case, I think the Attorney General's office believes that this is the best approach moving forward. And so, it's kind of a complex issue.
Yeah.
But I think, all parties agree that a compact needs to be agreed upon, and but it's just the substance of it. And I think at this point, there's enough agreement across the board that we need to take note. Now, it's not the end of the process. You understand that. Still has to go before the legislature, still has to go through committees, still has to go through the House and the Senate, and they have the opportunity to make changes along the way as well. So it is a long process, but at this point in time, I'm support of a compact, in essence, in moving it forward.
Okay, now Scott, one of the things that I've been hearing about every time we have a discussion on this topic is that folks who live either in the reservation or outside the reservation who are not tribal members, who are maybe landowners or business owners, have been terrified that somehow either A, they would lose the water that they've been using for generations, or B, that the water that they've been using at a certain rate would just skyrocket to the point where it would drive them out of business. And so folks are very concerned about that. Can you address that fear that folks have?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the misunderstanding out there. I think if you get the information from, these compacts, let me just start by saying the compact itself was designed by the legislature, authorized by the legislature to mitigate and to settle these claims, to make sure that state water right users continued to have, their fair share of what they've purchased, what their amount, what they use, in perpetuity. They can continue using that, but it also helps mitigate the claim that the tribe has to those water rights based upon, the treaties that were signed, back in the 1800s. So that's what this is all about. This is to try to settle that issue so that there won't be any claims. And I think if you go to the Attorney General's, Tim Fox's website, maybe DNRC's website, you can get the actual components of the settlement so that you're clear, that you're educated in what the settlement is. This is not a taking. This is not a property taking or water taking. This is a mitigation. It's a settlement so that there will not be any taking.
Okay, tell you what, Scott, we're up against a break, so hang on. Go ahead, John.
I just wanted to give an opportunity. We're opening up the lines, so if you have a question about the Water Right Compact, you disagree and would not pass this if you were in the legislature, or you agree and you support it for some reason, and just want to give kudos, give us a call. Phone number is 721-1290. That's 721-1290. We'll put you on the line.
Okay, and we do have an update from the courthouse, standing room only there for closing arguments. And we understand that Janelle Flager, Mr. Karma's partner, is there, sitting next to Karma's mother, as well as many of the neighbors who had testified during the trial, all there in district court to see what happens with closing arguments. So we'll continue as we continue visiting with Scott Reichner, joining us on the radio, talking about the Water Rights Compact in a moment. This is Talkback, Tuesday edition. 721-1290 is our number. Scott Reichner joining us on the telephone this morning, and let's get other folks want to visit with you, Dave. So let's get Dave on the line. Good morning, Dave. You're on with Scott. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. I got 3 questions.
Okay.
Okay, the first is, are you a tribal member?
Scott, are you a tribal member?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Second question is, will water rights presently in place be grandfathered?
Would you ask that question?
Yeah, he asked, would water rights that are currently in place be grandfathered in?
That's what I believe is going to happen with the settlement. You're going to see the rights that you currently have transferable. In fact, I think the system that will be in place moving forward will be more efficient as well when you wish to transfer those rights.
Okay, what's your next question, Dave?
Okay, he needs to speak louder. The last question I have is, where does the EPA enter into all of this?
Okay, where does the EPA enter into all this, Scott?
I'm not exactly sure. That's a good question.
Okay, we'll have to find that out.
Okay, I couldn't hear his answer.
He said he's not sure.
Oh, wonderful. All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks for the call. Well, there you go.
No one knows where they are.
That's right.
They're behind every bush. Yeah, I think is the answer.
All right, let's get Joe on the line. Joe, good morning. You're on with Scott Reichner. Good morning.
Hey, Scott. This is Joe Reed, former legislator from House District 11.
Hey, Joe. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah. This is where we're going to have to politely disagree because I'm not in favor of the compact. I'm a lifelong water user. I was born and raised on the property I'm still on right now, and there's a long history of mistrust between the tribe and the average citizen on the Flathead Indian Reservation, and I can speak from my own experience that I've been 25 years as a firefighter being dispatched by the Salish Kootenai tribe. And there's issues that go on, and that's part of the reason for a lot of this distrust. But in my own circumstances, I have already been damaged by the potential of this compact because I've been denied what they called non-quota water earlier this year. When I asked for it, they said that no longer exists. So there are already damages being accumulated against farmers.
Now, Joe, how many acres are you trying to irrigate?
Well, with the estate part and my part, it's just a little under 80 acres.
So if you're having problems with a compact in absentia, couldn't it be improved if the compact didn't exist?
Well, the reason we're having problems with the compact in absentia is because of the rule authority of the tribe taking over and all of a sudden denying something that we've received all along. And that's the issue is when we get into this management organization where 2 members are from the tribe, 2 are local and 1 from the state, the people here don't necessarily trust the state all that much, and it looks like it's going to be 2 against 3 on any decision that comes down when it comes to the question of how water is to be managed.
Scott?
Well, yeah, go ahead. Scott, do you have a response?
Well, no, yeah, Joe and I served together in the was it 11 session, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're good friends, and sit on the same side of the aisle, and I empathize with his comments, and I understand that the trust issues, and I get it. I think that those are legitimate concerns, and you have to have some confidence. I think at this point, you got to have a little bit of confidence in the Attorney General's office, Tim Fox, and what he's trying to do here, because I think he recognizes that the absence of a compact, is something that doesn't bode well. On the other side of things, Joe, and I think you'd probably agree, if there isn't a compact in place, then there's potential for much more severe issues with your water rights moving forward. Whereas if you agree and have a settlement now, there may be some changes or some issues that you may not be in favor of, but they aren't sweeping changes that would happen.
Now Scott, allow me to just jump in here for a second. And Joe, first of all, thanks for your call. Scott, if the compact is not finalized, and if it is not approved by the legislature, we'll take a break. And if you can answer this after the break, will it be Katie bar the door? Basically, anything could happen. It's one of those. It's better. I hate to use this term. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And at least this is something that's been written down. It's been talked about. It's been agreed upon by several parties: the Attorney General, the Governor. But if it is not approved, I would love to know, in your view, what would happen if we had to go back and start all over again. So we're going to come right back and talk about that. By the way, we have one line open, 721-1290. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us on the Tuesday edition of Talk Back. About 3.5 minutes in our. This is a very short segment. So Scott Reichner and Joe is joining us, both joining us on the radio right now about the Water Rights Compact. Now, the question I had, Scott, was what happens if this is not approved, and if we have to go back to the beginning? Is there going to be? Is it Katie bar the door? But do we know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, there is potential for jurisprudence to kick in, and the tribe could, theoretically go and file, claims in court, and then that opens up a long process of litigation, and so that's what the whole compact, sort of mission was to avoid. That's why the legislature came up with the compact, is to come together so that we have a settlement, so that we avoid any litigation, because there truly is a real threat there that in doing nothing is not the answer.
Yeah, Joe, what's your response to that question, Joe?
Well, whether we adopt this compact or we do not adopt this compact, I feel and I understand that we will end up going to the court system, one way or the other. There are people on this side who read the issues so differently. It's also, this compact would be a precedent-setting compact, and I have a feeling that other attorney generals in other states would probably join in to fight the state on this compact. There's been a lot of communications going on, and there's been statements by the Attorney General's office that he doesn't feel that there are people, or I don't know where this statement came from, but it's from a high-placed source, that they feel that the members of the people of the Flathead Indian Reservation, the landowners, the irrigators, don't have the money to take this to the court. And I feel that the people will be threatened enough that they will come up with the money to go to court. And there's already injunctions against it. It's already been declared unconstitutional in certain aspects. So no matter what, I have a feeling if it's adopted, we're going to court. If it's not adopted, we're probably going to court.
So the lawyers win in either way, right?
Well, at this point in time, I think that's probably a true statement.
Wow.
And part of that reason is because the Attorney General's office under Bullock's administration, started off on the wrong foot and promised the tribe too much.
Okay, Scott, do you want to respond to that? We have like a minute and a half before we have to take our break.
Yeah, well, I can't. I think that our Attorney General, Tim Fox, who's a Republican, has been a strong leader in understanding, that we need to resolve this issue and put it to bed, put it behind us. To keep it open, I think is not the right thing to do. So, I think hopefully we've had enough dialogue over the last 2 years to sit down, meet with proponents and opponents, discuss the issues, and I know they've come up with an agreement that the Attorney General is satisfied with. They've also made a statement that there's no unconstitutionality involved in it, that it is a constitutional agreement. You can get that statement from their website. Corey Swanson posted it, I think, just yesterday.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm so sorry to do this to you, but we have a hard time to break. We have to meet here in just a few seconds. We're going to continue this discussion into the 9:00 hour. Joe, if you want to stay with us, Keith, hang on the phone. We'll try to get you on just as soon as we can.
And post on Facebook if you can't get in through the phone lines.
Because they are all full. So the telephone number is 721-1290. And after the top of the hour, we'll also cue you on what's going on in the Karma trial. Jury instructions are being given. And we will be right back after the top of the hour. Welcome back to Talk Back, brought to you by Bitterroot Motors, Temperite Service, Selway Armory, and the Mustard Seed. Just to give you a quick update, at the Karma trial, Judge Ed McLean is now advising the jury about matters of law, deliberate homicide, self-defense, things like that, so that they can determine the evidence according to the law to come to a deliberation as to whether or not Marcus Karma is guilty of deliberate homicide.
Wow.
So,
in other news, national news or international news, over 100 kids in Peshawar province in Pakistan.
126.
Some of them were adults as well.
Right, okay.
But were slaughtered by Taliban in the last couple hours.
In Pakistan.
But don't worry, none of the children were waterboarded before being destroyed.
All right. Let's. We're visiting with Scott Reichner is joining us. Are you there in Big Fork, Scott?
Yes, I am.
Okay, excellent. All right. Now, everyone wants to visit with you, so let's...
Just to let our audience know, Scott is a former Republican legislator for the state of Montana. What was the district you represented there, Scott?
Big Fork, all the way down to Olson, and then all the way up to Kalispell.
And he was against the water compact when he was in the legislature, but now he's supporting it as a member of FARM, which is Farmers and Ranchers of Montana.
So let's get back to the phone and say good morning to Keith. First of all, Keith, thank you for holding. What's on your mind?
Yes, good morning. And I wanted to ask Scott a question, but I first had a comment. This compact, it seems, is very reminiscent of something we heard in past years. And it goes like, if you like your water, you can keep your water. Had to get that one in, but the real question I have for Scott is this. Could you go into any details about the off-reservation impacts and effects, and how many counties will be affected by this compact?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big swath, right? I think it has to do with.
Isn't it like 11 counties?
Yeah, I mean it's.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not exactly sure but it's basically Lincoln, Flathead Lake, and it rolls down to the Bitterroot, and then it touches into the Yellowstone as well. So. It's a pretty big swath that the treaty is being interpreted covers.
Anything else, Keith?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. And that means we have a line open. It's 721-1290. And Catherine is on the line now. Catherine, you're on with Scott Reichner. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to ask Scott, and this kind of plays off of the previous caller. So the irrigators, not only on the reservation, but also, since this is the way I understand it, that it affects all water rights that flow from the headwaters in the reservation to wherever they happen to go, right? So that will also include other states like Idaho and Washington, and I think also Oregon. So have you contacted or have you talked to ag producers in those other states, because they also will be affected by this, will they not?
No, I mean, this is the state of Montana. It's an isolated to the state of Montana. So
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Hold on just a minute. Let me just try that. Okay, go ahead, Scott. Give it a try.
So my understanding is it's isolated to the state of Montana, and the compact is I think confined to the state of Montana. So, but I mean, that's a good point. I'd need to. I hadn't had that question asked me though.
Well, and this is like previous, so I don't know if this has been taken out, but since it affects all waters flowing out, and the waters then on the western side of the mountains flow into the Columbia. So,
but I don't think that was the original. And this is history that I'm not exactly clear on, so forgive me if anybody has the answer to this. I'll defer, but I don't think that was the geographical boundaries of the Flathead Indian Reservation, the different tribes. But,
okay,
what's the question? I guess did we approach other states? No, I don't think so.
I think that her question was leading to influence of the tribe over water that extends far beyond the native
boundaries of Montana, and also the reservation, because to a great extent, this is going back to when Montana was a territory, and it was part of the Oregon, Wyoming, Washington, Montana territory before it was a state. So I'm wondering how much that plays into it, in other words.
And I'm also curious, as to whether or not the Montana State Constitution abrogates, if you will, part of the claims of the tribe after the Constitution of 1973 was written.
Yeah, and I think this was brought up after the Constitution was
ratified.
Yeah, so I don't think it did, and I think that's why we're dealing with it now.
Okay. Well, Catherine, thanks for the call.
Sure, thank you.
Appreciate it. And we're up against a break, so Bobby, we'll get your call on in a moment. Scott Reichner is joining us. We had a line open, but off it goes. 721-1290 is our number. Just a quick update of what's going on in the Karma trial. Just moments ago, Carla Painter for the prosecution has stepped to the podium. She's beginning her closing argument for the state in the trial against Marcus Karma. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Scott Reichner joining us here on the phone from Big Fork, talking about the Water Rights Compact that is going to be looked at the state legislature. Go, John.
Yeah, last session or last segment, we were talking about the Constitution a little bit. You brought that up. Sure. And one of our posters, Elena on Facebook, has also brought it up, so I thought it'd be a good time to throw it in. She says maybe this grassroots education group should refresh their memory of the Montana Constitution. Just what part don't they understand? And then she cites Chapter 9, Section 3, Water Rights, parentheses 1, all existing rights to the use of any waters for any useful or beneficial purpose are hereby recognized and confirmed. And then parentheses 3, all surface, underground, flood, and atmospheric waters within the boundaries of the state are the property of the state for the use of its people and are subject to appropriation for beneficial uses as provided by law.
So, does that help to answer that question, Scott?
Well, no, that's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because, I mean, I think that's where the rub is with everybody. That's very clear in the Constitution. But I think what we have to understand as well is that the only thing that, and I'm not an attorney, but from what I understand, the only thing that supersedes state law is federal treaties. And so, when the federal treaty that was done in the Hellgate Treaty, and specifically the Stevens portion of it, granted much different, almost the same rights to the tribe. And so that's where the rub is we've got a treaty, which is treaty law with the federal government, and we've got state law or state constitution, and we only have one. We only have one body of water.
I mean, if we look back, and just as a regular Montana citizen, by the way, I'm not a farmer or a rancher. I have almost nothing involved in this discussion at all. But from my understanding, reading the Hellgate Treaty, other people have read it too. For the lay reader, there's not a lot about water rights in there. It talks about hunting and fishing rights, and then we jump from hunting and fishing rights to water rights through other legislation and emanations of penumbra that very few people understand to get back to what we have going on in the discussion today. Right,
and so I think you're correct, and I think that you're missing maybe the next point, which is, and I'm not necessarily agreeing with all this process, but this is just what's happened. We've got several court cases where judges have made, decisions based upon the Hellgate Treaty and the intent of it. And so, frankly, that's what's driving, this process more than anything. It's court cases budded from the Hellgate Treaty. Who knows what the original intent was. I'm sure the tribe would say they would want a very broad brush interpretation of what the treaty is, and that's where the dispute is. So I hope that that's clear, because I realize that there's all kinds of interpretations of it, but that's in the essence of what it is. We have one body of water, but we have the state of Montana, so people with title, water right, current usage. Then we have a treaty, a federal treaty. The only thing that trumps the water rights is the federal treaty, and that's why, going to court, at the end of the day, we're left with the judges to make the decision. And that's where, you don't necessarily want to go, whether you're on the right side or whether you're on the wrong side. You just don't want to go there.
I would say, just from a layman's reading of the Constitution of the state, it does seem that the state has the power to appropriate. If it were to find the compact to be a beneficial use, it has given itself the power to appropriate for beneficial use. So if it wanted to appropriate that to the tribes, it seems like it could do that.
Okay, let's get some more folks on the phone. Bobby's been waiting an awfully long time. Bobby, you're on with Scott Reichner. Go ahead.
Thanks. All this that you all been talking about here all plays into my question. I have a couple of points.
Okay.
One, that lady Elaine Willman, she said that the word Aboriginal will be put into the compact, which would mean that all water that flows over the ground and under the ground will be affected by this. Therefore, not just your water rights, but if you have a well, now your well will fall under the jurisdiction of the tribes. Then the other thing is all streams, rivers, ditches, that would also be water, all one body of water. That means the fish live in the water. Would that give jurisdiction to all fisheries to the tribes? Because it all seems pretty scary to me, because if you don't have water, you can't live here. Okay, that's my question.
Okay, so Scott, how do you feel about what Bobby said? Is there an ultimate?
Bobby, I appreciate the call, and I think that's part of the misunderstanding.
Thanks, Bobby.
I think, in my opinion, is that if we're sort of at a conjunction here, if we don't have a compact, then the tribe can take all these issues to court. They can bring up everything that you just brought up, and there's a chance that a judge will come out, will side with them. If we have a compact, none of that changes. None of the current water usage changes. So what it does is it sets us moving forward into perpetuity, a system that keeps the property rights, water rights of users, whether you be an ag user or just a residential well owner. It keeps your rights in place. That's what the Attorney General is trying to do, and to avoid losing your water rights to the tribe through litigation.
Let me throw something out there, because this is something I picked up on, something I kind of noticed during the last time this was brought up in the legislative session. It seems like a lot of the negotiations about the water rights settlement are based on trust and distrust. I hear actually you talking about the Attorney General and trusting his efforts and Tim Fox's office's efforts on this. And earlier we heard, I think his name was Joe, that called in, another former legislator.
Right.
He seemed to have a lot of distrust for the tribes. But neither of you have read what the compact will actually be this legislative session. And that seems like it could be a problem. And we might end up in kind of Nancy Pelosi land where we have to pass it to find out what was in it because it comes so late to the legislature that they have lots to go through and little time to actually understand a very complicated piece of legislative machinery.
That's what happened last session. Remember,
Exactly.
the compact was presented right in the middle of the session, and no one even had a chance to study it. And that's why they said we need to put this off for 2 more years. So 2 more years have gone by. Are we in the same boat, Scott?
No, I don't think so. And I think I would take issue with one of the things you said that we haven't followed it. Certainly, if you're not aware of the compact and the issues in the compact at this point, then you haven't been doing your homework, because the compact has had several, WIPIC meetings where they've met with community members, met with the tribe, brought people together, all stakeholders, try to discuss the issues.
Now, you've been a legislator. You know other legislators. I only talk to them on the radio. How many of your fellow legislators do you actually know have been following this as closely as you have? Just be honest with me. You're laughing because you know it's not that many, right? Yeah, me too. I think we could both be pretty honest about that.
I think as a legislator, especially if you represent anywhere in this vicinity, in the Flathead vicinity, you're probably aware of the issues. You're probably understanding. You've fielded dozens of phone calls from constituents, and you know where people stand and where they are, and you're trying to educate yourself. We have some great leaders in the legislature that have that you'll see stand up and support the compact moving forward. I think I know Tim Fox personally very well. I know his staff. I know Corey Swanson very well personally, and I know it's not. I do trust them, and I trust what they're doing. And I think they're advocating for the people of Montana.
All right, Scott, with that, we're up against a break. Hang on. Marcus and Derek, we're going to get you guys on after this quick commercial timeout. Just a brief update, the state is going through their opening statement right now, talking about Marcus Karma and Janelle Flager and how they deliberately tried to lure someone into the garage.
Are they saying they?
Yeah. Together.
So is there going to be a civil or criminal case against Flager later?
I do not know.
Wow.
I do not know. All I know is from our Greg Baird is tweeting from the courtroom. So if you'd like to follow along, just open up your Twitter page and go to Newstalk KGVO, and you can follow those tweets.
And if you're like most Montanans and don't use Twitter, we have the radio right here for you.
Yes, we do. We'll be right back. This is the Tuesday edition of Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us on the phone, Scott Reichner is a former legislator from Big Fork area, and everyone wants to talk about the compact. So first of all, Scott, thank you so much for your time today. We sure appreciate it. So let's get Marcus on the line. Marcus, you are on with Scott Reichner. Go ahead, sir.
Hello. Well, I just wanted to encourage people to embrace a historical perspective of what's going on here, and that doesn't just include the Montana Constitution, which came very late on the scene, or the Hellgate Treaty, which came a little bit earlier. There's a lot of stuff that happened in the middle that is part of what's going on. And I think I hear these knee-jerk, what I would call a knee-jerk reaction, sort of the tribes are going to own it all, they're going to rule, and they might. I mean, they could, it might be a hard pill to swallow. But when you have to go back and look at the historical perspective, it's not quite as pretty as maybe it's made out to be. I mean, first you put the gun to the people's head and say, hey, we're going to take your land and we're going to give you this reservation, and they agreed to it with all these treaty agreements. And this was ratified by the U.S. System and is the law of the land at this point. At that point, we gave them the Bitterroot. That was all part of the reservation. So that technically is all reservation land, and it's basically their own country that they rule. Except we reneged on that, and we took the Bitterroot from them, and we put them onto a much, much, much smaller reservation up on the Flathead. Okay, and then a few years later, we said, that reservation's looking pretty good. Let's allot the Indians their 20 acres each or whatever, and there'll be a bunch of land left over, and then we can settle that land and take that too. So then we settle that, which is all against the original treaty where they had a certain amount of land. So we keep reneging on our promises, and get down to the point where then now you have these people saying, I'm a fourth-generation Montana, which is like synonymous with time immemorial, right? Like this guy's been there 4 generations. Oh, maybe 4 sounds really impressive to him, but it doesn't really sound very impressive compared to 100 or 400 or 4,000. And so, and I'm not saying the Indians were there time immemorial, because we all know they moved around as well, but they were there when this whole thing started, so they're holding the keys to the castle.
And now, do you have a specific question for Scott?
Well, I don't have a real specific question, but I wanted to encourage this. The problem I have is that these people come along, and to them, 4th generation seems like forever.
Okay.
But in reality, allotment, it came very late on the scene. These people are lucky to have gotten a scrap of the pie at all, and it's basically theft just because somebody stole something 4 generations ago, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to let you keep what you stole 4 generations ago. Doesn't also mean that I just feel like there's an over sense of entitlement. I'm also a Montana rancher, and I have actually the first water right in the state of Montana, the oldest water right.
Really?
In 1852. Yes, in the Bitterroot in the Stevensville area. The Indians, that's right after the Indians were kicked out of the Bitterroot. Then they came in and they started.
Well, lucky you, lucky you, Marcus.
Yeah, lucky me. And I understand how important water is to running a ranch and that, and it's a very bitter pill if you find out, geez, you never really had the right to, if you're driving on your neighbor's land across, using his field, and then you find out you don't really have the right to that field, you can say, well, you can try to make those claims, but it's right there in the treaty. And so I just have a hard time hearing people.
Well, Scott, I'd like to know, with your historical perspective, and it sounds like you do have a deep root into all this, what do you think would be a fair system, a fair agreement?
Well,
would be for, and I think fair needs to be paired with what's best for all people.
Are you asking Marcus or Scott?
I'm asking Marcus.
Okay, Marcus. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marcus.
I agree that the compact is better than the alternative, where it all could be handed. The current users could lose, and they could say, no, you never actually had the right to use that water. And who knows, they could even say, well, you've got to pay for all the water you've ever used, right? Make retribution on it. So I think the compact needs to move forward because that's the best case scenario. Now, maybe that's going to cost money. Maybe it's going to cost some people are going to lose some water rights. There's going to be some shifting around there, and it's not going to be comfortable. And I fully understand why. If my ranch was under the gun, I'm sure I'd be dead against it or whatever. But I encourage these people to look at the alternative, and I think that was brought up on the show by Scott and whatnot, which I appreciated. That the alternative can be quite uglier than this compact.
Hey, Marcus, we are up against a break. We appreciate your call. I want to give Scott a chance to respond to what you've said, okay?
All right.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Derek, we're going to get you on in a moment. We have a timeout here. We have the line open, but it's ringing. So, Scott, if you don't mind holding, we'll get you on in just a moment to respond to what Marcus said. And we'll be right back with more of Talkback right after this. Talkback, rolling right along. 721-1290 is our number. Scott Reichner joining us from Big Fork. We're talking a little bit about, actually, the whole focus of our discussion this morning is about the Water Rights Compact. And so, Scott, the gentleman before had lots of things to say about what could happen and the fact that treaties were violated and people who have been in Montana 2 and 3 and 4 generations think they own the place. That sort of thing. So I wanted to get your response to some of the things he said.
Well, yeah, I think there's, this shows the diverse opinions of folks. You've got people that are on both sides of the ideological spectrum, and that was just a good example of, the other arena and what people believe and so, I think you're hearing it all today.
Well, as a matter of fact, we have another gentleman on who's a legislator, Derek Skis. Derek, you're on the phone with Scott. Hi.
Good morning, Peter. John, good morning, Representative. How are you guys today?
Good. Doing great. I understand that you take an opposite view as well.
Yes, sir. No, I've been involved with the Water Compact since 2011 when I served. And specifically in 2012 and 13, I went to pretty much every single meeting Chris Tweeden and company had, and I've been a vocal opponent. I just want to say this. It's unfortunate that in many debates, the idea is promulgated and everybody agrees, okay, here's the idea, and then we debate that idea. I don't want to have anybody frame the debate when the debate has been framed incorrectly. So let's step back. There's two critical components to this. One, in 73, when the Compact Commission was given the job to start adjudicating these water compact treaties, they had the authority to do it on Federal Reserve lands only, and all other compacts besides this one dealt with just Federal Reserve water rights, which is basically the geographic boundaries of the Indian reservations. And so this last treaty, the CSKT, it has gone out of bounds. It's gone off Indian reservations, and it asserts Indian authority over water in 11 counties in western Montana, and that isn't even what the commission was assigned to do. So one, the whole thing is illegal because they didn't have the authority to do it. And then second, this is the most important part. Everybody goes back to the Hellgate Treaty, which was picked, of course. There were many Stevens treaties, and it was picked because it happened before Montana statehood. Therefore, they could claim that it had superiority to the statehood of Montana. What we need to look at is what happened in June of 1934. We had a thing called the Indian Reorganization Act. It's also called the Wheeler-Howard Act. And in that act, they wanted to give the Indian nations more sovereignty. And so they offered them the choice to create their own constitutions and become quote-unquote sovereign nations. And therefore, they were no longer treaty nations. And do you know which Indian reservation was the very first one in the USA to do that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the CSKT.
Okay.
So these guys are no longer treaty nation Indians. These guys are sovereign nation Indians. And you can look that act up. It's online. There's a ton of information on it. And so right there's two assertions in this whole thing in the very beginning that fight its legality.
Dave?
Now
Scott, go ahead.
I respect Derek and his, former representative skis, and he and I are friends, and I respect his opinion, all his hard work here. He's, clearly informed and, understands the process. I think that there's just room to disagree here, and I think that you kind of have to rely on, what our Attorney General said and what our Governor has said, and I'm not disagreeing with the facts necessarily. It's just that I think there's room to disagree with the precepts as well.
Well, tell us what that room is. It's because it sounds right now that it's based on trust in the Attorney General and the Governor, and I think my listeners want more than that.
Well, go look at the compact resolution. Go look at what they've agreed upon. That's online. You can read through it. I believe it's online. It should be. I think they agreed to it in principle just the other day. And so I think you can go back and search it. Now, clearly, the process is not over. It's got to go through the legislative process, and things can change. And so I think to come out and say, I'm against it at this point, it may be premature because you don't know what can happen through the process. Words can change, more sort of compromise can happen, and I think we need to be aware of that as well. The legislature has to do its job. And so if what I'm in favor of is moving the process forward, and I'm in favor of what the work has been done thus far. Is it a finished product? No, not yet, but it will be in the 15 legislative session, assuming that it goes through.
Go ahead, Derek.
Actually, Representative, it is, one, you're right, it is a moving target. The bill itself is roughly 250 pages, and it references 1,200 pages of abstracts that the legislators don't even have access to unless they do their research. And second, I don't think it is, you're telling us that the legislature has the legal authority to modify this like they would any other bill, but they cannot because it's a treaty negotiated between the federal government. There's three parties in this, the feds, us, and the tribe. And the legislature cannot adjust the compact without nullifying it because the tribe did not agree on it. So if the legislature gets it and they want to add a couple of amendments to it, and they want to change it to make this a better thing for Montana, they can't do that because the tribe didn't negotiate it. And so, no, this was an all-or-nothing thing. When this shows up, it's what the tribe has given us, and we can either agree or disagree with it.
All right. Hey, Derek, real quick, I'll give you one more minute, and we have to take a break.
Yeah, and the really brutal thing is everyone loves to scare us that it'll lead to tons of litigation. We will survive litigation because no other tribe in the history of America has ever asserted off-tribe water rights. And just like you guys said earlier in the Hellgate Treaty, if we're using that as the frame, it doesn't even use the word water. It talks about fishing rights. And so now there's a ton of holes in this thing. Judge C.B. McNeil declared it unconstitutional 7 different ways. And if you understand those 7 ways, this thing will die by lawsuits fighting it.
All right.
And so,
hey, Derek, we thank you for your call. We appreciate it. And we're going to have Scott to stay with us to give his response. Nancy, we have another legislator.
That's right. I sent up the elephant bat signal right before the show. We've got every legislator from here to Helena calling in.
Nancy Balance is going to be on the line here in just a moment to visit with you, Scott. So it's legislator to legislator, and we're talking about the CSKT Water Rights Compact that will be looked at and either passed or not passed during the upcoming legislative session. We'll be right back. We're back on Talkback. That's John King. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us on the phone, Scott Reichner, joining us from Big Fork, and being a very good sport in taking all these phone calls. Now, did you want to comment a little bit on what Mr. Skis has to say before we get on to our next caller?
Well, I think he makes, some valid points, and I think that, litigation is always an option. And I think that if if that's the direction you want to go, then you have to be prepared to receive the outcome from it. And I think, if you're talking about, federal judge or Ninth Circuit Court, that's where it'll end up. And so there's some reality here that, I understand all the points that are made, and I get it. And I think you just need to be cautious. I'm not an attorney at all. I'm a business owner. But as I've spoken to attorneys and Fox administration, they're very clear that this doesn't. We don't want this to go to court.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I just wanted to add something to the conversation. I think that when we talk about this issue, one of the things that has to be understood, if we go to court, where do we go to court, right? We would go to court in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, famous for upholding the Constitution. Right? So I'm laughing because I don't think it has been. And I think that, a lot of the reliance on this is constitutional, this will go this way, this will go this way. Yeah. Well, but there's this big gray area called this particular, the most wild court of the 9 that we happen to live under here in the state of Montana.
And that's probably a real option if we decide to litigate. All I'm saying is that the Compact Commission was put in place. It's been through a long process. We've had all kinds of feedback from everyone throughout the state. And are there issues that people don't agree with? Absolutely. Is it a perfect settlement? Absolutely not. And there's no perfect settlement. But in this case, you've got to find something that's close enough. And I think when you have the governor, Democratic governor, Steve Bullock, Tim Fox, who's obviously a Republican, as the Attorney General, and they've come together and they said this is the right thing to do.
Okay, let's continue on and get Nancy on the line. Nancy Balance, good morning, fellow legislator. You're on with Scott Reichner. Hi.
Good morning. Hi, and hi, Scott. Good to talk to you over the phone at least.
Nice to talk to you, Madam Chairman.
I have been, since we left the last session, knowing that this was going to come back in 2015, I started studying it, and a few other legislators did as well. And we took several questions to the Water Policy Committee and asked for specific studies on environmental impacts that would ensue from this, and then legal impacts and economic impacts. We did get the reports back on the environmental and on the legal, which left many open questions, as you know if you've read them. But a couple of issues. One, on the constitutional issue, we talked a little bit about what Article 9 of the Montana Constitution said, but we didn't talk about Article 2, Section 4, which is the equal protection issue. And clearly the Montana citizens on the reservation, non-tribal members, rather than being able to take their claims to the water court, they would have to go through something called this Unitary Management Ordinance, which puts them outside of Montana law and then into this other group. So they are treated differently under the law than others are, which I think is a major constitutional issue that still remains. The other issue, if you look at Federal Reserve water rights and the way they've been resolved consistently, the purpose of the reservation is identified, and then the amount of water to satisfy the purpose. This one is completely different. Basically, all of the water on the reservation is given to the tribes, and then the irrigators are given a portion based on their historic uses, which some argue have not been met. So it's very, very different than any other settlements have been done. And John, I have to say, I think it would go all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
Of the U.S.
Nancy, we are up against our final break. We appreciate your call. Thank you so much. And we're going to give Scott a chance to respond to what you said. Mike, we also have a line open for you, and we have one line open if you're trying to get through. So we have go ahead.
You can always expect the Supreme Court to do the right thing. They'll never turn a non-tax into a tax or
yeah, exactly.
Jerry rig the entire system.
Maybe we should deal with it now. Hey, we're going to come right back. Stay with us. This is Talk Back. Only a few minutes left, precious minutes left in our show. We're talking with Scott Reichner, who's joining us from Big Fork. And Scott, you've been doing a lot of listening and not a lot of talking. So Nancy Balance just made an excellent point. So how do you respond to what she said?
Well, we've heard it in previous callers as well, the constitutional question. And again, I'm not an attorney, but I do know Corey Swanson, I do know Tim Fox, and they've said their interpretation is just different.
Okay,
So I think what we have to do is rely on the leaders of our state to make the right decisions, and that's where I fall.
Okay, let's get Mike on the line. Mike, you're on with Scott Reichner. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Reichner. One of the words that you've used a lot during this interview is forward. We've got to go forward. Well, if you remember, the word forward was a phrase that Obama ran both of his campaigns on. And
it doesn't necessarily make it a bad word, Mike.
Well, no, that's true.
I thought it was hope. I thought it was hope and change.
Yeah.
Well, it was hope and change too, but I mean, if you look at all the bumper stickers, they all said forward on them. But forward is a dangerous place to go if you're on the wrong path. So you have to make sure you're on the right path before you start going so forward, because the reason we're in the spot we are now with all of the things that Obama has gone through with, including Obamacare, IRS, Benghazi, all those things, is because he went forward headstrong into all of them. So be careful going too forward before you know all the facts. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, thanks for the call. So, Alan, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yeah, good morning. I have a copy of the Hellgate Treaty here on my lap, and Article 1 of the treaty is very interesting. Article 1, the said Confederate tribes of Indians hereby cede, relinquish, and convey to the United States all rights, title, and interest in and to the country occupied or claimed by them, bounded and described as follows to wit, and then it describes the area. Nuisance, Ruby. It seems to me that we've got a treaty that says all of the rights of the Indians were given to the United States government, and it makes me wonder what the Indians think they're going to get out of this, because the government is the one that is totally in charge if they get these water rights.
Okay. So, Scott, how do you? Thanks for the call, Alan. So what do you think, Scott? How do you respond to that?
I don't really know how to respond. would you be more succinct?
Well, he seems to be intimating that in the Hellgate Treaty that all the lands, which would include, I assume, all the water, would be ceded back to the United States.
But yeah, but
to the
he
U.S.
says
government.
outside. I mean, it does list a boundary description, and that's what's at issue here.
Right.
Are those boundaries prescribed in that?
Right, and that's the difficult thing. I don't think, if you go back to the signers of the Hellgate Treaty, they anticipated this. I mean, I just don't think they anticipated that we'd have, these sort of, this water compact moving forward, personally. But I think just because of the process of, our legal system and what's happened since then, the rights, the wrongs that have been handed to the tribe, I think that now we have to deal with the current judges and the current stakeholders and their interpretation of what is meant.
Okay, tell you what, let's try to get one more call in. Ron Pfeiffer, you are on with Scott Reichner. Hi.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I was a pioneer in the environmental impact process back in 69, 70, and I think a socioeconomic study should have been done on this whole thing because the implications for property values will be huge. And furthermore, I can tell you on our property in the Bitterroot Valley, should we lose our water rights, the land will go to sagebrush, which they call a climactic climate in plant ecology, and the agricultural business will be diminished tremendously.
Okay, thanks for the call, Rod. So basically what he's saying is if there are problems with water, the property values will plummet. Scott, how do you feel about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the point of doing a compact, so we have a settlement so that there aren't any of these questions out there. So I think he's, I don't know if that was his intent of his comment, but, I would say that that's the purpose of a compact. And that's why I think you've got the ag groups, hopefully the stock growers, that they're watching this very closely. And that's what this group is all about.
Probably, Scott. Forgive me here, but it sounds like the best solution in this would be something that nobody really likes, but everybody can live with. Mm-hmm. Yeah, does that make sense?
Anytime you've got a compromise deal, it's not going to be perfect. But
yeah.
You've got to, and many points were made, this, that, and the other, and I don't mean to diminish them. They're very valid points. And there may be some things that we don't like about it, but what we will do with this compact is ensure the current property rights and the current water rights of people in the state of Montana. That's the whole point of it.
Tell you what, Scott, we are less than a minute away from being done. Elena, I apologize. I wish we had time to get your call on. But if you could give us some contact information about how we can find out more about the compact, perhaps read it for ourselves, maybe give a call to our legislator before the session begins, what can we do?
Yeah, I think if you reached out to the Attorney General's office, the DNRC department, both of those websites have information on the compact. Our group, Farm, is another group. Your current legislator, whoever is representing you, especially in the Flathead Lake and Lincoln Valley, Sanders counties, all those counties that are affected, as well as it heads into the Missouri as well.
And Scott, we are completely out of time. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Montana World Affairs Council tomorrow?
That's right. Hussein Ibish will be on the air with us.
See you later.